Today, we enter one of history's most difficult questions. Not with slogans, but with context, scripture, and tension. Ancient Hebrew life was harsh, communal, and deeply religious. Pregnancy was never merely private, it shaped entire households. So what happened when pregnancy became unwanted or feared? First, we must abandon modern assumptions about ancient Hebrew society. Their world had no hospitals, privacy rights, or personal autonomy. Family survival depended on children, labor, inheritance, and social order. A pregnancy could bring blessing, suspicion, protection, or serious danger. Unwanted pregnancy was rarely discussed as a personal preference issue. It was usually tied to marriage, adultery, shame, and lineage. In Hebrew culture, lineage determined land, identity, and covenant belonging. Knowing a child's father mattered legally, economically, and spiritually there. That is why sexual suspicion carried enormous social consequences publicly. A pregnancy outside accepted boundaries could threaten an entire household. For women, the stakes were especially heavy and dangerous socially. Men controlled many public decisions, while women bore physical consequences. The Hebrew Bible does not present a modern abortion policy. Instead, it preserves laws, stories, rituals, and moral tensions carefully. Those fragments show a society wrestling with life and responsibility. One major passage appears in the book of Numbers itself. It describes a husband suspicious of his wife's sexual faithfulness. When no witnesses existed, the priests performed a public ritual. The woman drank bitter water mixed with dust and written curses. This ritual is known today as the ordeal of jealousy. Some readers believe it involved pregnancy, infertility, or possible miscarriage. Other scholars argue the text describes divine judgment, not abortion. What matters historically is the anxiety surrounding paternity and trust. The ritual exposed how suspected pregnancy could become communal crisis. It was not a private medical appointment behind closed doors. It was a religious courtroom, filled with fear and humiliation. The woman's body became evidence in a dispute about loyalty. That detail should make modern viewers pause before simplifying history. Ancient texts often reveal power structures more than compassion alone. Another key passage appears in Exodus chapter 21 itself today. It describes men fighting and striking a pregnant woman accidentally. If pregnancy loss followed, the offender paid financial compensation afterward. If further harm occurred, harsher penalties could be demanded legally. Interpreters have debated this passage for centuries, even today fiercely. Some see different legal status between fetus and born person. Others argue the text still protects unborn life meaningfully there. The point is clear: pregnancy loss entered Hebrew legal reasoning. But the law discusses injury, liability, and compensation, not choice. It does not describe a woman seeking to end pregnancy. That silence matters as much as the text itself today. Ancient Hebrew sources were written from male legal perspectives mainly. They rarely preserve what frightened women whispered to each other. Midwives, mothers, and older women likely carried practical knowledge privately. But Scripture does not give us their private conversations directly. That absence creates a historical wound we cannot fully close. We must not pretend ancient silence means ancient simplicity today. Unwanted pregnancy may have meant economic panic for poor families. It may have meant scandal for an unmarried young woman. It may have meant terror for someone accused of adultery. It may have meant danger when childbirth threatened the mother. In later rabbinic tradition, one principle becomes extremely important historically. When the mother's life was endangered, her life came first. The Mishnah says danger in childbirth allowed drastic intervention before birth. Once most of the child emerged, the rule changed dramatically. Then one life could not be set aside for another. This reveals a nuanced hierarchy, not a flat slogan today. The fetus mattered, but the mother's life carried decisive priority. That later Jewish reasoning shaped centuries of ethical discussion afterward. Still, it came after the earliest Hebrew biblical period clearly. So we must distinguish ancient Israelites from later rabbinic Judaism. Ancient Hebrews likely responded through family councils and social pressure. A father, husband, priest, or elder might control decisions openly. A woman's wishes could be heard, ignored, or overridden completely. Some families may have hidden pregnancies to protect reputation quietly. Others may have arranged marriage quickly to restore social order. Some women may have been sent away quietly by relatives. Others faced accusation, public shame, or severe legal danger alone. The biblical record shows communities obsessed with purity and inheritance. But it also shows desperate women seeking survival and recognition. Tamar used disguise and confrontation to secure her future publicly. Hagar suffered rejection while carrying a child linked to inheritance. Bathsheba's pregnancy became a crisis inside royal power politics immediately. These stories are not abortion manuals or medical records today. They are windows into pregnancy, vulnerability, and male-dominated power structures. They show women maneuvering inside systems stacked against them constantly. Ancient Hebrew society prized fertility, yet feared uncontrolled fertility too. A wanted pregnancy strengthened a household and secured its future. An unwanted pregnancy could expose sin, betrayal, poverty, or violence. That is the painful contradiction inside the ancient world itself. Children were blessings, but circumstances could make pregnancy terrifying fast. No responsible historian should flatten that tension into propaganda today. The Hebrews did not discuss pregnancy with modern individualist language. They spoke through covenant, household duty, purity, and survival together. Even compassion often appeared through law, not sentimental storytelling alone. Priests guarded holiness, elders guarded order, families guarded inheritance carefully. Women guarded life while risking their own bodies daily there. That imbalance shaped every response to unwanted pregnancy profoundly then. When Scripture speaks, it often speaks through male authority publicly. When Scripture stays silent, women's lived experiences disappear from record. That silence should humble every modern argument about the past. We should ask not only what laws existed then socially. We should ask who had power to interpret them publicly. We should ask whose pain was recorded, and whose vanished. In ancient Hebrew life, pregnancy was never medically neutral either. It was spiritual, economic, sexual, legal, and deeply communal always. That makes every unwanted pregnancy historically complicated and emotionally charged. Some cases may have ended through forced social solutions quietly. Some may have ended through dangerous practices we cannot document. Some may have continued because community pressure allowed no alternative. Some mothers likely survived by negotiating protection wherever possible then. So the ancient answer was complicated, contested, and human. Like this video if history challenged your assumptions today. Subscribe for deeper biblical history without shallow modern slogans. Comment what surprised you most about this hidden history. And share this story with someone who loves context.